For decades, one dazzling royal artifact sat untouched, wrapped not just in velvet, but in fear, regret, and painful remembrance. It was no ordinary heirloom. It was the tiara that once crowned Princess Diana in moments both of glory and of grief. Hidden deep within the royal vaults, it became more than a piece of jewelry. It became a symbol of everything the monarchy tried to forget. Behind locked doors and unspoken rules, the forbidden tiara was preserved like a ghost. No one dared summon. Whispers among palace staff claimed Queen Elizabeth herself had ordered it never be worn again. Too much blood in its sparkle, she supposedly said. That single command turned a priceless gem into a sealed tombstone for a royal past stained with betrayal and scandal. The tiara had watched it all. Diana's fairy tale unraveling into nightmare, the collapse of her marriage, and her silent rebellion against the very system that once celebrated her, and then suddenly she was gone. The tiara was never seen again. Even during key royal milestones, weddings, jubilees, and coronations, it remained absent. Many believed it was cursed, especially Queen Camilla, who allegedly refused to enter the vault room where it rested. "That's not a crown, it's a warning," she once told a confidant, her voice trembling under the weight of unspoken guilt. For Camilla, the tiara was more than a relic of the past. It was the very embodiment of Diana's unyielding presence, haunting her rise from mistress to queen. Over the years, royal watchers speculated endlessly about the tiara's fate. Was it destroyed, buried, or merely forgotten by choice? But then, out of nowhere, without warning or announcement, Kate Middleton stepped into the spotlight wearing that tiara. No subtle reveal, no ceremonial context, just brilliance, just defiance, just heartbreak, wrapped in diamonds. The palace fell silent, the world gasped, and within seconds, the myth was reborn. Because this wasn't just a tribute, it was a declaration, a statement, a challenge, a reckoning. But why now? Why Kate? Has someone broken the decades-old command? Or had something deeper, darker, and far more calculated begun to unfold within the monarchy? The answer wasn't in public speeches or smiling photographs. It was in the corridors of Buckingham Palace, where loyalty is a game of survival and memory is a weapon. But before the world saw Kate shine in the forbidden tiara, something happened behind palace walls that shook Queen Camilla to her core. Long before the cameras captured Kate Middleton stepping into history, a quiet storm was brewing deep within the palace. It didn't start with diamonds, it started with defiance. Behind the regal smiles and polished traditions, a private request had set off a chain reaction that nearly brought the royal household to its knees. Kate had asked to wear that tiara, not just any crown, Diana's forbidden one. The tiara no one dared touch, the one Camilla feared, the one Charles promised would never reappear. To outsiders, it might have seemed like a simple accessory decision. To those inside the palace walls, it was a dangerous move, one that cut through old wounds and resurrected ancient rivalries. And Kate knew it, but she didn't back down. She was no longer the shy duchess they once underestimated. This time, she was making a statement, and she knew exactly what it meant. Camilla was the first to hear of the request. Her reaction, insiders say, was immediate and fierce. She allegedly warned Charles that allowing the tiara to re-emerge would not only ignite public memory of Diana's suffering, but also unravel years of careful image building. "There will be consequences," she reportedly said, her voice trembling with more than just fear. It was resentment. That tiara, to her, wasn't just about Diana. It was a symbol of her own struggle, her fight for acceptance, her fragile grip on a throne she still felt wasn't truly hers. But this wasn't a fight she could win with whispers, because William had already made his decision. When told of the confrontation, his words were chillingly calm. "If my mother could wear it, so can my wife." That single sentence shattered the illusion of unity. He wasn't just standing by Kate, he was reviving Diana. And Camilla knew it. Then came the green drawing room incident, an emotionally charged confrontation between two royal women on opposite sides of history. The palace staff, though sworn to silence, couldn't contain the shock. Kate, usually poised and diplomatic, stood firm. Camilla, visibly shaken, allegedly accused her of digging up ghosts that were better left buried. But Kate didn't flinch. Some say it was the moment the torch truly passed from one queen to another. Staff were caught in the crossfire. Some, still loyal to tradition, sided with Camilla. Others, deeply affected by Diana's legacy, quietly supported Kate. And in the background, one powerful figure stepped forward: Princess Anne. With quiet authority, she invoked the rumored will of Queen Elizabeth, a document that allegedly included Diana's personal request about her heirlooms. According to whispers, Elizabeth had left guidance that Diana's most personal possessions, jewelry included, should someday belong to her sons' wives. Anne, ever the protector of royal code, was now honoring that wish. But the war over the tiara wasn't just about jewelry, it was about ghosts, guilt, and a promise Charles made to Diana that would come back to haunt him. In the final fractured days of their marriage, when the fairy tale had long collapsed into something colder, darker, and far lonelier, Diana summoned Charles for a private conversation. No cameras, no courtiers, just the two of them, and decades of disappointment, sitting between them like ghosts in the room. The palace walls had never heard a silence so thick. Diana wasn't seeking reconciliation. She wasn't asking for apologies. She was demanding remembrance. She looked him in the eye, not with anger, but with the quiet clarity of a woman who had endured the unimaginable and still stood with dignity. And what she asked for was simple yet devastating. "Let no one else wear what was mine in love and betrayal," she said, her voice almost breaking. "Not my dresses, not my jewels, and especially not the tiara. That tiara saw me at my happiest and my most broken. It wasn't about diamonds, it was about dignity, about legacy, about ensuring that even after she was gone, her truth would not be erased." Charles didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. Those who know say he nodded slowly, unable to look her in the eyes after that. And in that moment, he made a vow to an unspoken, unwritten pact with the past. The tiara would never be worn again. It would be preserved, untouched, as a silent monument to everything that had gone wrong between them. He called it a line we must never cross, as if doing so would unleash the wrath of history itself. Camilla, for her part, allegedly supported the idea. The tiara to her was like a mirror, showing everything she'd rather forget. And so, year after year, royal events came and went, and the forbidden crown remained hidden. Until now, Kate's choice to wear that tiara wasn't merely an act of fashion. It was a collision with that ancient vow. Whether she knew the full depth of that promise, or was simply following her own instincts, is still debated. But one thing is certain. Her decision forced Charles to confront what he had buried long ago. Because allowing Kate to wear the tiara meant breaking Diana's final request, it meant reopening a wound the monarchy had spent years trying to scar over. And for Charles, it was more than betrayal. It was a reckoning. Some say he hesitated until the very last moment. Others believe he gave no consent at all. And Kate went ahead regardless, backed by William and Anne. Either way, the tiara had crossed the boundary. The vow was broken. And with it, so was the fragile peace that held the past in silence. And as Kate placed that forbidden crown upon her head, the ghost of Diana seemed to rise again, forcing the royal family into a reckoning they had long avoided. It was supposed to be a night of unity, a glittering state banquet hosted in the heart of London, bringing together dignitaries, diplomats, and royals under one gilded ceiling. But what unfolded on that stage was anything but ceremonial. As Kate stepped into the grand hall, all eyes turned. The dress was stunning. Her posture was regal. But it wasn't her elegance that silenced the room. It was the crown, that tiara, Diana's tiara, the forbidden one. In that moment, a sharp collective gasp rippled across the crowd. Cameras clicked in stunned succession, faces froze in disbelief. And at the far end of the royal table, Queen Camilla's expression shattered like porcelain. Witnesses say her face went pale, her knuckles clenching the edge of the table. She didn't need anyone to tell her what this meant. She already knew. The past had returned, and it was glowing from Kate's crown. Witnesses tried to mask their reactions, but the energy had shifted. Whispers buzzed like static in the air. Royal watchers, who'd spent decades studying the family's every move, immediately recognized the symbolism. This was no oversight, no random choice. This was a move laced with meaning. Foreign dignitaries sat in stunned silence, some turning to aides for clarification, others furiously texting under the table. The tiara that had been erased from history had just been resurrected on the most public stage imaginable. Lip readers analyzing footage later claimed they caught Camilla murmuring to Charles, "She knows what she's doing," and there was no doubt about it. This was deliberate, strategic, devastating. From across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle, no longer a working royal but still a lightning rod of royal controversy, was quick to post a cryptic message. No names, no direct comments, just a single line. Some ghosts don't rest quietly. It was enough to send social media into a frenzy. Within minutes, Diana Returns was trending worldwide. Tabloids published side-by-side photos comparing Diana and Kate, both crowned in the same defiant jewels. Commentators called it a coronation in all but name. One journalist wrote, "Tonight, Kate didn't just step into Diana's shoes. She claimed her vengeance." Camilla, still seated at the royal table, managed to smile for the cameras, but it was a fragile mask. Inside, something had broken. The moment Kate walked past her, with that tiara shining defiantly on her head, decades of hard-earned stability cracked under the weight of memory. Camilla wasn't just watching her past resurrected. She was watching her place in the monarchy being quietly redefined in real time. And while the world celebrated the return of Diana's legacy through Kate, one woman sat in silence, her heart unraveling behind glittering glassware and cold protocol. But behind Camilla's poised smile lay years of unhealed pain, and what happened next would shatter that composure completely. Cameras captured her composition. Regal, unbothered, but the moment Queen Camilla left the public eye that night, the mask shattered. According to palace staff, she didn't return to her quarters in silence. She collapsed into them. No more forced smiles, no more quiet tolerance, just raw, unfiltered devastation. Multiple blades, speaking under the protection of anonymity, recounted the same thing. Camilla retreating to her private chambers, sobbing uncontrollably behind a locked door. The weight of the evening had crushed something inside her, something she had buried long ago under layers of duty and denial. One voice behind the closed door whispered words that chilled the soul of everyone who heard them. It was never supposed to be her. It wasn't just jealousy, it was grief, not for what was lost, but for what was never hers to begin with. For years, Camilla had walked a tightrope. From mistress to wife to queen consort, each step forward was stained by whispers of Diana. Her approval was never freely given. It was negotiated, earned, and still withheld by many. Every smile she gave was measured. Every appearance is curated. Behind it all was a woman trying to escape a ghost that refused to fade. And no matter how many ceremonies crowned her, no matter how often Charles stood by her side, she knew that in the hearts of millions she would never be the one. That title belonged to Diana, and now that tiara, the very jewel she hoped history would bury, had returned on the head of a woman beloved by both the public and the press. It was like watching a legacy unravel before her very eyes. Charles, insiders say, tried to console her. He entered the room briefly, placed a hand on her shoulder, and said nothing. Because what could he say? He too had seen the meaning behind Kate's tiara. He too had heard the whispers, and he too had made the vow. Torn between loyalty to his wife and guilt toward his past, Charles stood suspended in emotional paralysis. Camilla, choking back tears, reportedly looked at him and said, "You should have stopped this." But it was already too late. And then came Anne, always blunt, always composed. Her words, overheard in a corridor, were as cold as they were final. She knew this day would come. To Anne, this was not betrayal. It was inevitable. The monarchy, she believed, had always belonged to those who carried it with truth. And now truth had finally demanded its place at the table. But even as Camilla mourned what felt like a public dethroning, another secret was brewing. One that would redefine who truly holds power in the royal family. In the rigid world of royalty, where silence is loyalty and protocol is, power alliances are not announced. They are forged in whispers, sealed in glances, and hidden beneath layers of civility. And in recent months, one such alliance had been quietly reshaping the very core of the monarchy. It wasn't born from ambition, but from shared pain, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of legacy. Princess Anne, the unshakable pillar of the crown, had long harbored a silent reverence for her late sister-in-law Diana. Though they were not close, Anne had seen Diana's torment up close. And now, watching history echo through Kate Middleton, she recognized something in her, an unyielding grace under pressure, the same fire Diana had once wielded against a machine determined to break her. And so, a partnership was born, not loud, not formal, but potent. Sources inside the palace reveal a string of private conversations between Anne and Kate, in the months leading up to the tiara's reappearance. Nothing public, no headlines, but behind locked doors, Anne began guiding Kate in a direction only a seasoned royal could. Not just in ceremony or speech, but in power. She reportedly told her, "It's time the crown listened to the people." That wasn't just encouragement, it was a command. And when Anne, known for her fierce independence, began accompanying Kate to increasingly private engagements, the palace staff knew something had shifted. Some even claimed it was Anne who arranged access to the royal vaults, specifically the sealed section containing Diana's personal effects, items untouched since her death, items long kept under lock and memory. That access wasn't just symbolic, it was permission, it was an endorsement. It was the opening of a floodgate no one, especially Camilla, was prepared for. As Kate's stature rose, Camilla's isolation deepened. Once protected by routine and Charles's unwavering defense, she now found herself surrounded by echoes of the woman she had tried to forget. And standing beside Diana's successor was not just William, but Anne, the monarch's only daughter and his oldest ally. It was a triangle of influence Charles could no longer ignore. He stood at the center of a quiet war between the wife who had weathered decades of scrutiny to stand beside him, the sister whose allegiance now belonged elsewhere, and the daughter-in-law whose very presence revived the ghost of a woman he had vowed never to forget. And through all of it, Kate never flinched. She didn't have to speak. Her tiara had already said everything. It was not just an accessory, it was a message, and Anne had helped deliver it. And as tensions explode behind palace doors, whispers begin to swirl that this wasn't just a fashion choice, it was a signal of something far more dangerous. In the age of monarchy, power isn't always seized with force. It's claimed with poise, with precision, and sometimes with pearls and diamonds. The moment Kate Middleton stepped into that hall wearing Diana's forbidden tiara, it didn't just send shockwaves, it sent a message so carefully orchestrated, so quietly defiant, that many inside the palace now believe it was never spontaneous. According to royal insiders, the tiara moment wasn't a nod to the past. It was a calculated move, a strategic play in a silent war for the future of the crown. This was not about sentiment, it was about symbolism. And in a monarchy ruled by legacy, symbolism is everything. Kate's decision to wear that tiara wasn't just an emotional tribute. It was political theater. At a time when Camilla's presence continues to divide public opinion, Kate has soared in popularity. Polls show an overwhelming preference for her grace, her silence, her unwavering connection to Diana's memory. In comparison, Camilla's position, even as queen consort, has remained lukewarm at best. While Camilla reigns in title, Kate dominates in spirit. And now, that imbalance has become impossible to ignore. The public doesn't see Kate as waiting in line. They see her as the rightful heir to the people's heart. One headline read, "Camilla wears the crown, but Kate holds the kingdom." It wasn't meant to flatter. It was meant to expose a truth the monarchy has long tried to downplay. Social media erupted the moment the tiara reappeared. Hashtags like #DianaReturns and #KateTheQueen trended within minutes. TikToks comparing Diana's iconic moments with Kate's began going viral, with one viral post simply stating, "Different women, same crown, same message." Public reaction wasn't divided. It was united. For many, it felt like Diana's legacy had finally been reclaimed, not just honored. And Kate, without saying a word, had reawakened a collective memory the monarchy had tried to suppress. Even more shocking, political figures began referencing her during parliamentary debates, not for her policy, but for her symbolism. One MP referred to her as a reflection of what a modern monarchy could be if only it dared. Inside the palace, whispers grew louder. Some staff believe Kate is quietly reshaping royal power, not by force, but by redrawing its emotional map. She's become the unspoken leader of a new royal order, where grace is power, restraint is strength, and history is a sword. While Camilla continues her official duties, they now feel hollow, as if her role has been reduced to ritual, while Kate moves the soul of the monarchy forward. And perhaps that's the most dangerous shift of all. Not a coup of government, but a coup of the heart. And as this modern war of symbolism rages on, the echoes of the past roar louder, only in the one person who has remained silent until now. For years, King Charles believed he had outrun the past, that with time, titles, and carefully orchestrated appearances, the storm of scandal and guilt that once haunted his name had finally quieted. But with one shimmering crown worn not by Diana, but by the woman now hailed as her rightful heir, it all came crashing back. The tiara had not just resurrected Diana's memory. It had reopened a wound Charles thought had long scarred over. Now he stood at the center of a storm he could no longer avoid, caught between two queens, the one he once loved and betrayed, and the one who had stood by him through exile and restoration. Yet it was neither of them demanding answers. It was the world. Behind palace walls, Charles was said to be visibly shaken after Kate's tiara appearance. Staff reported him pacing for hours, withdrawn, silent. Those who know him say he was haunted not just by what had happened, but by the memory of promises made in private. Promises to Diana. Promises to Camilla. Promises he never expected to be held accountable for so many years later. The shadow of his affair with Camilla. The divorce that devastated a nation. The overwhelming backlash after Diana's death. None of it had truly disappeared. It had simply been buried beneath layers of protocol and time. But now, all of it has returned to the surface in the most public way imaginable. Questions began to circulate about a private letter, allegedly written by Charles in the days following the tiara's reappearance, a note addressed to Diana's family. Its content remains unknown, but those closest to the matter say it was filled with sorrow and regret. Not an apology, a reckoning. Questions also began to swirl about the role Charles had played in the decision. Did he give Kate his blessing? Or was he blindsided by her choice, orchestrated behind his back with Anne's silent approval and William's quiet defiance? The palace has never answered, but Camilla's cold distance in the weeks that followed spoke volumes. According to insiders, her relationship with Charles has grown strained. Her appearance is increasingly solitary. Some say she blames him for not stopping it. Others believe she sees it as proof that no matter how high she climbed, Diana's legacy still lives in every corner of the crown she now wears. And beneath the pomp, the photographs, and the hollow ceremonies, Charles finds himself once again at a crossroads. This time, he cannot rewrite the past. He can only face it. The question is, can the monarchy survive another fracture at its core? But while Charles battles his own ghosts, the world has already chosen sides, and the final blow comes from the one voice the monarchy feared the most. In the end, the question is no longer who wore the tiara, it's why. Was it the final stroke of a ghost's vengeance, or the first step in a woman's destiny? Public sentiment doesn't hesitate. Because continents and generations, hearts rallied behind Kate. She wasn't just seen as a royal, she became a symbol. A modern queen for modern times, one headline read, echoing what millions already believed. She didn't just wear the jewels. She carried the weight of memory, of promise, of grief, transfigured into quiet resolve. The tiara had once crowned a princess whose story ended in tragedy. Now it sat atop the head of a woman writing her own chapter, with poise, with fire, and with the legacy of Diana burning behind every polished smile. The tiara, long kept hidden, had returned not as a relic, but as a weapon of symbolism. Its diamonds didn't just sparkle, they screamed. Diana's presence, once buried beneath layers of protocol and silence, had been resurrected through Kate. The world didn't miss the message. Online montages played side by side, Diana's trembling hand waving to crowds, Kate standing tall beneath the same weight of public adoration. Diana's tearful interviews, Kate's graceful silences, one forged in agony, the other in dignity, yet both bound by a crown that knew too much sorrow to ever gleam innocently again. Meanwhile, Camilla's silence has become louder than words. In a world where public image shapes monarchies, her refusal to speak has been interpreted as surrender. She may still wear the title of queen consort, but in the court of public opinion, her reign feels spectrally overshadowed by a woman no longer alive, and a future queen who doesn't need to demand power because it's already been granted to her by the people. The monarchy itself feels as though it has shifted its balance. What once was unthinkable at Tiara, worn in defiance, has now become the cornerstone of a new royal narrative. Historians will argue for years, did Kate commit the ultimate break in royal tradition? Or did she finally liberate it? Is it in subordination or evolution? But one line now haunts every retelling. Once Diana wore the tiara in sorrow, now Kate wears it in strength. In that single act, history wasn't just remembered, it was rewritten. And so, with tears in Camilla's eyes and the past reborn in diamonds, a quiet war unfolds one tiara at a time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the